you to David Burt, our Zoom host, and Tom Leonard, who is on Zoom, is giving our invocation and pledge this morning.
There we are. Lord, bless this gathering of fellow Rotarians. Please help us to see those in need and give us the strength and wisdom to serve our Charleston community as we should. Help us to lift the burden of others through our Rotary service. Help us to maintain the dignity of humankind through our projects. Let us realize our club vision of fostering fellowship, networking, and fun through service. And strengthen us as we serve together as it's the historic Rotary Club of Charleston. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID.
Well, we're having fun with our trial of mixed Zoom and in-person meetings, and I appreciate all of your patience with that, but we're happy to be here in person. Robert Sullivan is introducing our visiting Rotarians and guests today. Here you go.
Don't believe we have any visiting Rotarians, so I will first start with Zoom. If y'all have a guest, please speak up. Going once.
Who's Shaka Khan?
All right, so if you have a guest, please stand up and introduce them. And project your voice is kind of loud since you don't have a mic.
Okay, I am so delighted to introduce my niece Zoe Cooper, who is here from California. She is taking out the semester from college and working on the election here in South Carolina. And I also want to be able to introduce Leslie Skardon, who is Sam Skardon's wife and better half.
True.
And Christian LeBlanc, who is on Sandy Senn's staff. He is here, and Sandy, as you see, is on Zoom.
Fellow Rotarians, it is an honor today to introduce you to my guest, Keith Ward. He was a Charleston School of Law grad with myself, and he is now practicing attorney at the Massachusetts law firm. He has submitted his application for membership, so please welcome him. Hopefully,
she's in the transportation hospitality industry, and as we are growing on our organization side, she's come on with us in the last few weeks, and
And this is Denise Colby. She owns Team Logic IT, and she, have you been approved for membership, or you just had your application in? Both. Okay, awesome. So we'll be welcoming Denise into our club fairly soon. So give her a warm welcome.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Brief health and happiness. David. September 24th, past President Mayor John Tecklenburg. September 26th, past President Paul Stoney and Charleston leaders. September 27th, past President Dan Ravenel. And September 28th, past President Amy Riley. Next from, I know you're here.
Program, you're pleased to have that resume in 2021 to 2022, and right now they're accepting applications
Go.
Students,
Go.
let me
I'm,
this preliminary application. Need to complete fairly soon through the end of October. And then as far as inbounds, hopefully we'll be sponsoring inbound, and if any of you are interested in hosting, we're going to need 2 or 3 host families to host that student that would arrive in August. So let me know if you guys want to do this.
Thanks, Karen. If folks on Zoom didn't hear that, Karen's basically letting you know that for next year, we will be renewing the Charleston Rotary Exchange program. So if there are teenagers that want to go travel abroad, they can apply and get in touch with Karen. And we will be looking for host students within our Rotary home for next year, for next school year. All right. Without further ado, since we have a very exciting program today, I want to pass the microphone on to Rob Biko, and we are going to go forward with our candidate forum. We really want to thank Sandy Senn. The state legislature was called into session. She had committed to be here, and so she is going to participate via Zoom. I am going to ask ahead of time for your patience with any technical challenges we have with this, but we're going to do our best. So we're looking forward to hearing from Sandy and Sam Skardon.
Well, good afternoon. I don't really want to hold this microphone, so I'm going to let you get started. Okay.
Fellow Rotarians, my name is Carl Brady. Co-moderating this with Rob Biko. I'm going to go over the rules for the forum, which were provided to the candidates in advance. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to make an opening statement. After that, we'll go into the questions, and thank you to those Rotarians who submitted questions in advance as well. They'll have 90 seconds for a response. We have given the candidates 3 wildcards where they can jump in on a question and respond if it was not directly asked to them. So there's 3 of those that they can use throughout the forum. There's 2 lightning rounds, which will consist of yes or no questions. So each candidate will hold up a yes or a no, just so you can see where they stand on those issues. And then once we get to the end, each candidate will make a 60-second closing statement as well. I want to thank Past President Sandy Markle for serving as our timer. You'll see a green card get held up when you have 30 seconds left, a silver card when there's 10, and then a white piece of paper that says stop when it's completed. So that one should be pretty self-explanatory. Rob and I will be alternating asking the questions of the candidates in a schedule that we've developed. We pulled it initially. Sam will actually get the first question when we get to that part. But that being said, did I miss anything, Rob?
I don't think so. Don't be surprised if the bird drops from the ceiling. It's only the word of the day. So.
Who's speaking first,
The
Carl?
age of this room. Somebody needs to know Groucho Marx.
Sam has the opening statement.
Sorry, Sam has the opening statement? Okay. So yeah, we're having to pass the mic back and forth, so.
You got timers?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all of you for having me here, and thank you, Senator Senn, for joining us and accommodating a Senate schedule. I also want to thank my wife, Leslie, for joining us here. She is the rock of this campaign, and she is the smarter, more attractive person you see in that picture, along with the smarter, more attractive dog of ours, Stuart, on your table is there. Listen, I want to tell you a story about the first time I sat in this room. Presentation from Darren Goss about economic inequality in South Carolina and America as a whole. He had a heat map. Green meant good, yellow, orange, and red obviously was the worst. South Carolina was the only state on that entire map, the entire country. All 46 counties were dark red. If you were born in poverty in South Carolina right now, in every single county, you have less than a 5% chance of ever being a top income earner. Only state in the country where that's true. I think that's reflective of an education system that has failed too many students for generations. It's reflective of an economy that has shameful disparities that we've never addressed. And frankly, I think since I was a kid here growing up, these have been the same issues we've been talking about. And we haven't had legislators who are willing to lead on them, who see them as fundamental issues of our state, and who want to make systematic changes to address them. So that's why I'm running. That's the vision for South Carolina I'm excited to offer, and I think we can do in the state Senate if we win this election.
Thank you, Sam.
Great, sorry.
Okay, now Sandy, if you want to make your, let's see. Folks
Can y'all hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. All right, thank you. Thanks everybody for allowing me to be here via Zoom. As you know, I certainly would be there if I could. And if you hear a bell ring or if I seem distracted, it's because I'm trying to see what's going on the floor, and then I'll have to go vote. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sandy Senn, first term senator. So I hadn't had that long to work on education issues, but I certainly have worked hard on my educational piece, which would certainly be having more people. Can y'all not hear me? Is there a problem? Can y'all hear me now? Hello?
Hang on one second. Yeah, sorry, you're gonna have to start over. The microphone
Okay.
died.
Okay. Okay, yes. If y'all can hear me now.
Hang on one second.
So I'm Sandy Senn, first term
No, it's
senator
not.
elected.
Oh, 1 second. I'm so sorry.
Just 1 second, sorry, we're having some technical problems.
What a great birthday, y'all.
No press either.
I don't know what just happened. The speaker just went out.
Skardon had something to it.
Okay, Sandy?
No, not yet.
You ready? Everybody's ready. Y'all can hear me. Y'all can't hear me. Nope.
Yeah, let's take a quick break.
Hello, hello, hello.
Is that thing on? Is it on? And is the white button on? The flip to.
She can call him.
Hello? Can y'all hear me?
On Zoom, we can hear
Okay.
Sandy Senn very well, but not the crowd.
Ready to hear from you again.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello? You can? I can't hear you. Yes? Yes. Okay, so y'all, my name is Sandy Senn. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a first-term senator, ran first time for any office in 2016. I'm a wife, mother of 3. I'm also a lawyer. I have represented first responders for more than 30 years now, and am proud to do so. So my first term in office, I've worked very hard on flooding and infrastructure. Hopefully some of you realize that I helped push through 526, and that was something that I ran on. I had quite a stumbling block with Senator Leatherman and the STIB, but we were able to get through that. In addition, I do an awful lot of work on common sense flooding solutions with the Intergovernmental Flooding Task Force. Together we've fixed more than 40 neighborhoods, so I'm very proud of that. My educational incentive, I've worked hard to try and make sure that more students are allowed access to technical school training while in high school, so that they will be able to hopefully come out of school with at least an associate's degree, whether that is with necessary STEM retraining or whether it is someone that wants to work with their hands, whatever their call of life should be. I think that we should allow them to go to technical school if they would like to. And as I've mentioned before, of course, I've been a strong advocate of first responders, still am, especially in today's climate, and conservation. I don't think anybody can beat me in conservation. I won the Green Award from conservation voters with my hard work against plastics and pollution on both highway and waterway. Thank you. I see my stop sign.
Thank you, Sandy.
All right, we're gonna figure this out.
All right. Here we go. Yeah. They're gonna take us on. All right. First question of the afternoon. We'll go to Sam.
Clarification, 60 seconds or
90 seconds.
90 seconds.
Thank you.
90 seconds.
Thank you.
All right, the very first question. We know women serve as the primary or co-breadwinner in 2/3 of South Carolina's families. So women are key to our state's economic health. African American women earn 53 cents on every dollar earned by a white man. For white women, it's 74 cents. What are your plans to close the wage gap?
Thanks. Can y'all hear me right here? All right, good. Thanks, Rob. That's a great question and an extremely important one for our state, especially given the incredible contributions that so many women have made to South Carolina. First and foremost, let's start with the low-hanging fruit. We are one of the last states that has not ratified the Equal Rights Amendment. We absolutely should do that, and I applaud Senator Senn being part of that effort. I would absolutely fully support that as well as a state senator. But I think we need to do more. We need to do some of the harder things in addition to the easy ones. The things like our minimum wage. The majority of minimum wage earners in South Carolina are women, $7.25 an hour, and 56% of the people earning that are female. Most people who would benefit from a Medicaid expansion are women, their mothers and their children. The people who we pay the least in South Carolina, who we provide the fewest services to, and when we take hard stands against providing that assistance and bringing people the support they need, it's women who suffer the most. Family medical leave in South Carolina is something that my wife and I have dealt with very recently in terms of my wife works remotely for a Kansas-based company actually, and switching to South Carolina, the benefits drop incredibly. And it's because the culture we have in South Carolina isn't to provide for families, isn't to take care of families. So those are the hard issues we have to talk about too, in addition to doing the important things like ratifying the ERA.
Thank you.
All right, the next question is for Senator Senn. As I get this thing open. All right, Senator Senn, will you support turning the voting rights encompassed by the emergency voting legislation into permanent law? If so, why? If not, why not?
I need to hear the beginning of that question again.
Yep. Will you support turning the expanded voting rights encompassed by the emergency voting legislation into permanent law? If so, why? And if not, why not?
No, I would not. I think that if people can go, even during a pandemic, if you can go to Walmart or grocery shop or whatever, you should be able to go and vote in person. I love going to the voting lines, but I did indeed support it this time because of COVID. And I think though that normally and regularly our voting open, we now have early voting, we have in-person voting. I think that, certainly everybody, if you care, should get themselves to the poll, but in a COVID period of time, then I understand why we would go ahead and make these exceptions. And I voted both for the June and November elections for us to be able to vote absentee with no excuse.
All right. Our next question is to Sam. What role should the legislature play in assuring all South Carolinians benefit from an equal and adequate governmental response to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thanks, Rob. That's such an important question. This pandemic's personal to me in a couple ways. I lost my grandmother to it back in April. And there are 3,100 South Carolinians who have died of the coronavirus this year. There are 56,000 hospitality jobs that have been lost. And unemployment is still twice as high as it was the day before the pandemic started. And it's what I do every day. So my day job is small business lending. We lend to folks who can't get bank loans to start a restaurant or a food truck or daycare center, or nail salon. And they're the ones who are on the front lines of this pandemic. They're the ones who have seen demand go from record levels to almost nothing overnight. And we've spent most of the last 6 months trying to work with them, coach them through it. How do we develop new business models so you can stay sustainable and stay healthy and be here and come back stronger? How do we get them access to capital to keep them people employed? And that's why it's so frustrating to me when we're doing all this work in the trenches, when it's personally affecting my family, and I know so many of your families, that we see a state that government that never fully got behind a mask mandate, that actually fought local municipalities who did do that because mask mandates were proven to work and proven to reduce this transmission. We never had a great testing plan. I'll go back to my wife, Leslie, and I'm sorry to put her on the spot so much. We went to see her mom a couple of weeks ago, wanted to get tested beforehand. She's an at-risk population. It took 9 days to get test results back. That's unacceptable. That's a failure of our testing system, and we need leaders who can handle this pandemic better and handle crises better in South Carolina.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. And just for Senator Senn. Senator Senn, what is the difference between early voting and absentee voting? Do you support making these options permanently open to all South Carolina voters?
I think that was sort of the question we had just a little while ago, but early voting, yes. I think then you go in, you show your credentials, and I personally enjoy being able to early vote. I have done that before too. Absentee voting, you know, there are a lot of reasons why you can truthfully say that you have a reason to vote absentee. But if you're asking me whether I would continue to support these mail-in ballots that don't have to have any excuse absentee, my answer remains the same as it was for the last question, which is no.
Thank you.
All right. Question for Sam. South Carolina invests in building better roads and bridges, airports, and other infrastructure projects, and justifies the investment by touting the economic dividends they provide. Why shouldn't bridging the digital divide or providing an equitable education for all also be considered infrastructure investing if the payout for South Carolina is a higher quality workforce?
Thanks, Rob. And there's a lot in there. We got infrastructure, flooding, education, workforce. So we'd have a couple hours to answer this question. Great. That's it. Let's talk about the education part of it, because that is, like you said, that's the root of the issue, and it is the most important issue facing our state. Look, I went to the public schools here. I have the stories myself of sitting in classrooms where we ended up having classes canceled because air conditioners broke in the middle of August. I see the wife of my former high school government teacher here, who I hope I'm making proud. You know, in our district, I have a friend who sends her son to elementary school on James Island. School has one of the best STEM labs in South Carolina, and her son has never set foot in it because for 2 years they haven't had a teacher to teach him. Those are the systematic failings of our schools. And they're the stories I experienced. They're the stories that our kids are still experiencing today, and we're setting them back, like Rob said, for their entire lifetime. We need systematic changes. We need to reinvent public education in South Carolina. I agree technical education is part of that plan, but we need things like universal pre-K. Start young, get kids ready for kindergarten, because the majority of kids in South Carolina don't show up on reading level for their grades in kindergarten. We need to pay teachers fairly and reward them for their hard work. We need to alleviate the disparities in our schools. And I'll point out that last week, a lot of this came to the head in the Senate budget vote. And I thought that was the most telling thing there could possibly be, that this was a last-minute vote in an emergency session rather than dealing with this issue head-on as the first vote like it should have been.
I would like to use a wild card. May I use a wild card?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. Actually, Sam and I are going to agree a bit on this one. Actually, I haven't heard a lot that I would disagree with him on so far, but broadband really should be provided to everyone. That's why I definitely supported the $50 million to go to expanding broadband, because I don't see how our students, especially in the rural area, can do well at all with this Zoom learning. But then what about trying to get a job? What about even learning what jobs are open not too far from their homes that maybe they could apply for? I wanted to go ahead and hit it with the full 70 million. I certainly am pushing for there to be more expansion of broadband to make the kids and even the adults have some type of opportunity to compete in the market. Now, for anybody to say that someone who sits on judiciary can control what finance does, the only thing I get is one vote. And usually you can't break apart the budget and you can't break apart the CARES Act. I can either vote yes or no. So I voted yes for the broadband. I actually voted no for the overall budget, just because I didn't appreciate the fact that the teachers didn't get raises. So Sam and I agree a lot on this one.
Thank you, Senator Senn.
And the final question for this round goes to Senator Senn. And this is a Rotarian submitted question. Being a new resident of South Carolina, what are some ongoing issues that the state is facing and are important to be aware of?
Well, if you're new to South Carolina, probably when you drove into the state, you have seen our crumbling roads and bridges, and that's a big problem. Even though I'm a fiscal conservative, socially maybe not so much, but fiscal conservative, I did vote for the gas tax because we have to have that. We've got dangerous roads that are killing people. So that's one of our problems. Flooding, I'm sure you've opened the paper, and almost every time you open it, then you see that we're having flooding concerns. And that's why I have accepted the role of chair of the flooding task force. And then, of course, we unfortunately have started having a lot of violence. The violence has increased significantly. I'm very concerned about that. I know a lot of people on the other side say it's fear mongering, but I disagree. When everything happened on King Street and the rioters were saying that they were going to go take the violence to the suburbs and then take it to Angel Oak and burn Angel Oak down. Well, my house is on Johns Island on the way to Angel Oak. So I took it very, very seriously because I do live in the suburbs, and I think we all should. Seeing the provost's husband killed on King Street, there was a reporter that was accosted. We really have to get a handle on violence, but otherwise I'm glad you're here and I hope you enjoy the beauty and environment in Charleston.
Thank you.
Lightning is just yes.
All right, so that concludes our first round of questions. We're going to do a lightning round now. It would be two yes or no questions. So just have your yes or no cards ready. You have your Senn ready to go? All right.
She hears you.
Okay, thank you. All right, the lightning round is be sure to hold up your yes or no. Will you support the completion of Interstate 526?
Duh.
All right, and the second question is, do you support giving municipalities more home rule authority? Okay, very good. That concludes the first lightning round. I'm going to hand it back to Rob.
This is my Vanna.
There you go.
This is for Sam.
Restarting this time with Sandy? I believe so.
That's great.
All right.
You're sure she can hear it?
Sandy, this one's for you.
Okay.
Women are more likely to live in poverty and are not paid wages equal to men. Yet women's economic health are the key to healthy and successful families. South Carolina hasn't voted to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. Would you vote to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment? Why or why not?
I already have, so the answer to that is yes. And I sat in an all-women subcommittee, so we actually had that before us last year, or actually before COVID, pre-COVID, and I was very excited to be able to hold up my little Susan B. Anthony that we were given and voted yes, all for women, even though sometimes my party gives pushback on that. I fail to understand it. I do not know why in the world that we would not go ahead and just give women the vote and the right, not just case law. And as a justice said not even too long ago, I think it's been within the last 2 years, that one of the justices pointed out that women have never been officially declared equal with a vote. It's simply case law, and case law can change, as we know, which is why the hubbub now because of Justice Ginsburg's passing. So yes, I would support the ERA.
Thank you.
All right, this one is for Sam. How does your position on current COVID-19 measures align with other public health or safety policies that have been instituted for the greater good? As an example, evacuation orders, smoking bans, use of safety belts, and DUI laws.
Thank you, Councilman. Glad to have been able to talk about COVID a few minutes ago, but I do agree that there are times when we need to make laws in the interest of public safety. And I actually wish South Carolina as a state had done more of that to support cities like Charleston that took a lead on it. I'll go bigger picture too, though, and talk a little about healthcare policy in general in South Carolina. And this is an issue that doesn't come up in the state Senate. And I think that's reflective of a failing of our state Senate. Because if we're quickly becoming one of the last states that hasn't expanded Medicaid as allowed by the Affordable Care Act. There are 164,000 South Carolinians without access to health insurance right now. And I'm sure when they revise the numbers, they'll go up because our unemployment has doubled. So in the middle of a public health crisis, people are losing their jobs. South Carolina is still starving its own citizens of access to affordable health care. And I think it's shameful that our state Senate has never taken that up. And it's a reflective of leadership just not prioritizing it. So I mean, we need to expand it. I'll speak to my experience working with small businesses again. We work with entrepreneurs, people who are taking that first plunge away from a big corporate job and into something on their own. The single biggest reason people don't sign the dotted line for a loan, they're afraid to leave that company healthcare behind. This isn't just a moral issue like education is too. It's like education, it's an economic issue too. And lack of good access to healthcare holds people back from being entrepreneurs, holds people back from being healthy and productive employees.
Thank you.
These questions are just flying by. Sandy, this for you. How will you ensure that the Charleston region gets its fair share of road and infrastructure funding?
Thank you very much. So as part of the deal, in fact, sitting in this very room, which this is only second time I've ever been in here, I was brought in here with a group of senators.
Hold on.
Can you hear me?
1 second, Sandy.
Okay.
Cutting out. Is it on?
I turned it back on.
Turn it back on.
Okay.
Sorry. A minute.
Can you say something just so we see?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we ready? All right, so
Yes.
definitely, I do wish I was on finance because that would help a lot. However, unless you've been in the Senate 12 years, you're not going to ever get a seat on finance. So there's no way for us to take our time with judiciary, which is a huge committee, and spend a lot of time trying to keep an eye on finance. So I can tell you, I wish I was there. However, I have been very fortunate to be able to bring usually about $500,000 home locally. I know I supported the Florence Crittenden home. I've also supported the Morris Island Lighthouse and various parks and recreation projects and things of that nature. Mine have always been on a line item though, and not hidden in a budget like you may have read about, that there's a lot of pork barrel spending hidden in a budget. Mine have always been on a line item. Also, what's very important is to know that the reason I ultimately voted for the gas tax is because Senator Leatherman and Vincent Shaheen, people from both parties, came and assured me that we would see a C fund increase. And what that meant as part of the gas tax is that we in Charleston are a donor county. There are only 11 donor counties, meaning that we collect the lion's share of the tax and then we give it to the rural counties. But we were able to bring a lot of that tax home because of the fact that we increased the C funds. And that is what caused me to ultimately go ahead and vote for the gas tax, even though I'm a fiscal conservative. So you'll see more money already being given locally for the locals to fix the roads. I can't see y'all anymore. So I guess my time's up, but I can't see y'all anymore.
All right, thank you,
Now.
Senator Senn. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
60 seconds.
Thanks. I want to jump in on the traffic infrastructure question because it is one of the most important everyday issues in our district. I mean, District 41, for those who aren't familiar, is almost everything west of the Ashley, James Island, parts of Johns Island, Somerville, North Charleston. They're some of the worst traffic and flooding hotspots in all of South Carolina. I couldn't agree more that we need massive improvements to our infrastructure, not just 526 like we've talked about, which I am for, but we need to get innovative. Our state needs to start paying for solutions that aren't just roads, but like pedestrian, mass transit infrastructure that isn't happening yet. And I will say there's a pretty big difference here, and I think this is a clear contrast in our race. Looked up my own state senator, Senator Senn's record on DOT budgets, and every single year Senator Senn's been in the Senate, she's abstained from the DOT budget, and I can only imagine that has something to do with the legal work she does on their behalf, which I don't challenge her right to earn a living. I don't challenge DOT's right to legal representation. I do think it creates a fundamental conflict of interest on one of the most important issues in our district, and I think we need a senator who can go be our voice on that issue.
Can I jump and respond to that?
Yeah, she gets a wild card.
Yes, you may respond.
Thank you very much. The reason I abstained was for the reason you just mentioned. I don't have a conflict of interest when I abstain. So, and the same thing, I do that sometimes on police issues, because as you know, I represent police and I have for a long time, but it's disingenuous to say that we can't be senators and still, work for certain groups and entities. I've had my business for more than 30 years. And I did see where my opponent, Sam, tried to convince people that I make $1 million a year from the state. That is disingenuous. He's a banker. He should know gross from net. Gross, yes, I'm usually in the top 5 earners in the state for defending the government, but they get a big, thick list of lawyers to pick from, and I'm just fortunate that they pick me, and I'm very thankful for that. That's business that I have earned, and it's been there for a long time, and it feeds 12 families. Certainly doesn't just feed me. I wish it did. So there are things of that nature that every single one of us would have a conflict. We've got pharmacists. They don't vote on certain PIBA matters. We all have conflicts.
Thank you, Senator. That's the end of your time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next one is for Sam. Just yesterday, with the sunny day high tide flooding, we saw the impacts of rising sea levels and climate change here in the Low Country. What are your plans to address the climate crisis?
I think that's a great question, Councilman. And like I said, our district has some of the worst hotspots. Church Creek Basin that was identified in the Dutch dialogues in our district. James Island has multiple neighborhoods where FEMA has had to reclaim homes, purchase homes because they've been flooded repeatedly so many times. We need to do two things at the same time. We need to treat the symptoms of this disease, which I applaud Senator Senn's constituent services on the flood task force. It's very important that we keep our ditches clear, that the drainage infrastructure we have in place works. We need more infrastructure in place. But at the end of the day, that is not what's causing this flooding, and that can't be our only answer. We have to have a state government that acknowledges and addresses climate change and does every single thing we can to be leaders in that fight against it. We have coal-fired power plants in South Carolina. I think we should transition to renewables as soon as humanly possible. We have development patterns that have led to sprawl and encroaching on our wetlands. We need to change that. We need to see our role not just as on the front lines of treating the symptoms of this disease, but leaders in the fight against the causes of it. And I think that's missing in our state government right now, and I want to advocate for it.
Thank you.
Let me just say, I heard a bell. I think it has to be for the House, but I'm watching this monitor. So if I get up, that means it's just delayed and I'll have to run in there and vote. I hope that's just the House bell though. So anyway, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Here's an easy one for you. Can public education play a role in reducing the rate of recidivism easy to say, among South Carolina's prison population?
I really do think so. And in fact, I supported giving money to prisons to teach the parent, because a lot of people in prison cannot read themselves, yet they have children. And then what can they do? They cannot teach their own children how to read. So I actually supported giving money to the prisons to increase their educational capability so that when they get out, they hopefully will be able to end up being able to get a better job, being able to teach their children. And so, yes, I think we have to do a lot in public education. And I agree with Sam, we need to start doing that at a younger level. I think everybody agrees with that. But, you know, we're number like 23, I think it is, in the dollar per pupil. We're just always dead last in results. That I don't understand, but a lot of it has to be with the family. And so therefore, I think we all have to encourage the family growth as a whole, including the parents.
Thank you.
All right, this question's for Senn. Acknowledging that traditional public education has been limited to a K-12 model, do you support expansion of adult and continuing education opportunities to make South Carolina's workforce more competitive?
That's a great question, Councilman. Absolutely. Like I think we talked a little about technical education at the beginning of this, starting in high school, moving all the way through someone's career. We need to people to be able to be retrained, trained in the first place. Before I was doing small business lending, I was working on an economic development strategy for the region. We make wide body airliners here. We make the cars of the 21st century, electric cars. We need to have education infrastructure in place to train people in South Carolina to take those jobs. So it's vitally important. I couldn't agree more. Sometimes I feel like when we talk about education in South Carolina, the car's broken down and we're trying to fix the radio. I mean, we have, Senator Senn mentioned, we have Virginia level funding and Mississippi level results. And we have to understand that we can't just throw our hands up in the air and say, why is that happening? We got to understand we have to pull every lever we can, starting at young ages, universal pre-K, making sure kids have great teachers because they're paid well and they have good working conditions, addressing the disparities in our system, because it's not just that we have universally bad schools, we have some great schools, and then we have some very bad ones too. Our own district has 33 public schools in it. Exactly half of them are rated good or excellent, half are poor or failing. 17, 16, 33 schools, you can't have half. Mr. Murphy would be very proud of me for that. But this needs to be the ultimate priority for our state because, like you said, we cannot have a 21st century economy without it. And we are going to have more of a school to prison pipeline rather than a school to career pipeline unless we address it.
Thank you, Sam.
You're the lightning round this time. Last one, this round.
This is the lightning round?
No, this is the lightning round. This is the lightning round. All right, lightning round, questions 2. Got your cards, Andy? Would you support a constitutional convention to rewrite South Carolina's constitution?
South Carolina's?
Did you hear that?
Yes, South Carolina's.
South Carolina.
Yes.
Yes. Would you support a constitutional convention to rewrite South Carolina's constitution?
Yeah.
That's the same question.
Question 2, will you support raising teacher pay for South Carolina's teachers?
So the question is teacher pay, support raising it. Yep.
It's your question. So, Senator Senn.
All right, we're going to bounce back to Senator Senn. Access to adequate health care has long been a concern among South Carolina families. I think we touched on this a number of times. Should expansion of Medicaid be revisited so that every South Carolinian has access to health care amid a public health crisis?
So to me, that is not just a yes or no kind of question. As far as during a public health crisis, I certainly support everyone being able to get tested and get cared for as a result of this virus. As far as permanent expansion goes, a lot of people don't realize, I mean, what I don't think is that people that have money, people have other capability of insurance, I don't think we open it wide open, and we certainly have to have fraud checks because it certainly could be rife with fraud. But I agree that especially now, we got so much unemployment. I worked so hard to help people get unemployment, people that had never thought they would ever be unemployed. And a lot of people don't realize that already, because they have been out of work for so long, they already qualify for Medicaid. And I've been trying to let the folks know that I helped that they already qualify, and probably once they get on it, they'll be on it for at least a couple of years. So that could take some of the pressure off. But the bottom line is, yes, I would like to see more capability to have healthcare. I know that it's kind of the $22,000, $25,000 level worker that gets excluded, and that person probably will not be able to have healthcare, and that's super unfortunate. I think we need to look at the thresholds as well.
Thank you, Senator Senn. You want a wild card?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thanks. I realize I've already spoken about support for Medicaid expansion. I want to use a wild card because it's that important. It's just such a simple, no-brainer solution to me, and the fact that our state government hasn't done it yet should be a stunning failure of leadership in so many ways. And this isn't just a red state, blue state thing. There are other conservative states like South Carolina that have done it. Missouri did it this year, and they did it by public ballot referendum, which requires a vote of the state Senate in South Carolina to put it on the ballot. So even if the Senate won't vote for it themselves, we should put it on the ballot next year and get it expanded. It's just such an obvious solution. If you have a problem that's affecting 164,000 South Carolinians who qualify, no fraud, nothing like that, qualify by the numbers, what they're earning right now, and you can solve that problem with one stroke of the pen, and someone else is going to pay for 90% of that solution, why would you ever not take it? And the fact that we haven't, I think, is reflective of state government that desperately needs change.
Thank you.
All right, this question is for Sam. What are your plans for creating more high-paying jobs in South Carolina?
That's a great question, and I love talking about our economy. That is my background. I have a business degree and worked in the private sector for several years now. Let's start with entrepreneurship in South Carolina. Like I said, we do small business lending, and the Charleston area specifically actually has some of the lowest entrepreneurship metrics. It's a hard thing to measure. One way to do it is try to track the patents and trademarks that come out of an area. And for other cities our size, other southern cities our size, we lag dramatically far behind in every metric of entrepreneurship you can have. So we need to do more to support entrepreneurs, and that means things like I do every day, like access to capital, things like making it easier to start a business and hire someone, like better healthcare. We need to nourish our existing businesses, and we need to build industries around them. So when I was doing our regional economic development plan, we don't necessarily need a totally new Boeing out there. What we need is to build an ecosystem around it. We need suppliers. We need to deepen the economy that we have now so it can come back from this pandemic stronger than before. So this is an area where I'm really excited to have a lot of experience I think we can offer in the state Senate. I do think my background is a bit unique in that, and I would be excited to offer a private sector business experience lens on a lot of these issues, which I'm proud to combine with a set of progressive values that I can serve our district very well and would make for a very unique and unusual voice in our Senate that can move our economy forward and be visionary about it.
Thank you.
Senator Senn, do you support expansion of rapid testing for COVID-19 at schools? If so, why? If not, why not?
Well, that one's certainly a no-brainer. On my way here, the school called me and said my son was sick. So yes, I would like to get him rapidly tested. And I think that we need to have greater expansion on that in a lot of levels, not just schools, nursing homes, even, you know, there are a lot of areas where we should be able to do this. And it's not that DHEC hasn't been given the money. They just have not been able to procure, I think, mainly the equipment that does the rapid testing. That's one of the issues. But there are a lot of things that are going to be coming up on the horizon. It is not a money issue. We have funded it, absolutely. I think we all need to be able to get rapid tested.
Thank you, Senator Senn.
All right, and this is the last question before we move to closing statements. We're moving right along. This question's for Sam. What is your position on offshore drilling?
Yeah, I couldn't be more against it, and I'm proud to have a long record of being against it. One parts of my background we hadn't had the opportunity to talk about is I spent the first job out of college working on the staff of Congressman John Lewis, one of the late great civil rights heroes in American history. And I actually got a job for him during the summer of 2008, which was the peak of the drill baby drill movement. My first job was to do all the research and do all the background digging to figure out what exactly are the numbers here, what are the implications, and it was literally my first thing I did out of college for him. And for ever since, I mean, it is shocking the risks we take, the amount of money that we invest in the infrastructure of the past. I mean, not only is it a risky thing for our coast, it's investments in our energy sources of the 20th century, when we should be spending that time and money investing in sources of the 21st century. So I'm proud to have the endorsement of Congressman Joe Cunningham in this race. I think the Low Country's champion in the fight against offshore drilling. And it's the reason I'm proud of that endorsement for a wide variety of reasons, but the biggest one is that recognition of strong opposition to offshore drilling.
All right, thank you, Sam. That concludes this round. We're going to move to closing statements now, and that will begin with Senator Senn.
Okay. Well, first, there we go. Okay, well, first, let me thank y'all for letting us have this forum. This is the first time Sam and I have debated. I've been wanting to debate, and actually I see that he and I are not too far apart on a lot of issues, which might be unusual. I guess that's why my own people call me a moderate. When I got into office, I thought I was conservative. Turns out I was just mainly conservative on financial issues, but I've learned, and it is a learning curve here, that we are going to constantly have to go down that social issue rabbit hole. But I've learned that now in my first 4 years. I do want another 4, even though I do believe in term limits, because there are some things that I still want to accomplish. Just to let you know something else about me that we didn't touch on and not many people know. I sat on the board of the SPCA for 5 years, and I actually was a founder with Henry McMaster of the Animal Fighting Task Force. At the time, South Carolina was number 2 in dog fighting, and now we have come a long way. So I've been very proud. Can y'all not hear me? Sam's waving. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, Sandy, can you go back to when you said you were a founder with Henry McMaster?
Yes. Okay. Of the Animal Fighting Task Force. This was back when we were considered the number 2 state for dog fighting. He was the Attorney General back then, and I actually tried for free a case against David Tant, who was later sentenced to 25 years in prison. But I handled the part where Henry McMaster, as the AG, was sitting second chair, where we basically took custody of those pit bulls that Mr. Tant had trained to fight each other. So that's just another passion of mine. I sit on the animal subcommittee. I sit on a lot of subcommittees, including banking and insurance. And I would not, if Sam ends up becoming our senator, would not think that he should abstain or he should, disqualify or not be the senator just because of whatever his profession is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks y'all, and appreciate everyone being here. Thank you, Councilman Rob, Lisa, Sandy for organizing this. Thank you, Senator Senn, for making the time and dealing with the tech issues. started this by asking you to think about the last time I was here with Darren Goss's presentation on the shortcomings of our economy in South Carolina. I'd ask you to go a little farther back to about probably 46 years ago. I wasn't here then, but I imagine there was another 32-year-old standing in front of this club asking for their support. That was Joe Riley in his first campaign for mayor. I take a huge amount of inspiration from his leadership and his vision for Charleston, his vision for the Low Country. I think Senator Senn rightly pointed out that if you go up and down, yes, no, there might not be some differences on the issues, but I think it is the duty of all of our elected officials and public servants to present a vision and boldly and aggressively pursue an agenda that will get us to it. I think in South Carolina, we haven't been doing that. We haven't had a vision for great public schools. We haven't had a vision for fighting climate change or building an inclusive economy. That is what I'm trying to offer in this race. That's what I should hope to offer for our district and for the state Senate. So I'd certainly appreciate if all of you would join us, support our campaign, and thank you again for your time today. I really enjoyed spending it with you.
Well, thank you very much. Senator Senn, thank you for making the effort to join us and being patient with our technical issues. We really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And I just want to say how pleased I am for us to be able to have this kind of forum and have real civil discourse about issues. It makes me hopeful for our country. A couple of Rotary reminders. We do have a social planned for October 15th. You should have gotten an Evite. So please look at that. We're looking forward to being able to get together at the Bay Street Beer Garden, October 15th at 5 in the evening. We will be meeting again here next week. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. There we go. Thank you. Who is speaking next week? Thank you, Rob. Bishop. Thank you. Guglielmone will be speaking next week. The week after that, Coach Earl Grant will be speaking from the College of Charleston basketball. October 13th was originally scheduled to be a skip week. You know, in the past, we've had usually one meeting a month that we didn't meet. Well, with our new technology, we've decided, why don't we make that a Zoom meeting? So we're not missing a week of Rotary, but we're meeting via Zoom. So October 13th, we are going to have Steve Slifer, who is going to talk about COVID-19. So we'll be having that. And then on October 20th, we have Dr. Jacob Mincer with Alzheimer's research. So we have a lot of great programs coming up. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And now if you stand, if we could say the four-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And a huge thank you to David Birch.
Yeah.